Are you filled with fear, doubt, worry about the future of our country? Do you feel the urgency to act before it's too late? If yes, then this podcast is for you. It's time for us to confront the critical issues threatening our nation's fabric, our democracy itself, regardless of our political stance. If you are ready to face reality, handle the tough questions, and find real solutions, then here's your host, Debilyn Molineaux.
Welcome to the Terrified Nation podcast. I'm your host, Debilyn Molineaux. Can we save our country? Well, that's the big question that we're asking in this podcast. And I believe the answer is a loud and confident, yes, we can. And we must. Here we don't just talk about fear. We look for ways to move past it. And we meet people who once felt scared or angry or hopeless, but decided to take action. They chose courage over fear. And they're working to make our country better, just like the people who built it a long time ago dreamed that we would. So courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about doing what's right, even when we feel afraid. And that's what we're here to explore. And I like to begin each episode with a question to spark our imagination. And today's question is how does knowing our history help us dream about the future and find the courage to build it? So let's dive in and find out together. We're interviewing Dr. June Klees. Now, June and I first connected through group Zoom calls on democracy. And we were often discussing like election reform and bridging conversations. June has been a dedicated leader in the U.S. Civic Wellness Movement, founding Compassionate America and collaborating with coalitions nationwide. And since 1997, June has also been a professor at Bay College in Michigan, teaching history, as well as courses in cultural diversity, education, and geography. She holds degrees in both education and history, earning her PhD in history from Kent State University. And most recently, in 2024, she was recognized by Bay College as an outstanding full-time faculty member. And one student shared, Dr. June makes history fun, but she also challenges us to think critically about what really happened. June, welcome to the Terrified Nation podcast.
I'm really happy to be here, Debilyn. Thank you so much. And thank you for that warm introduction.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you here. And I'm so happy that you decided to come and share with us your imagined future with the Terrified Nation listener audience, because this is actually part of a national research project to imagine a future we want, not just one that we don't want. And as we go through the interview, I really want to just encourage you to think about what you want, not what you think is likely or probable. We often limit ourselves in that way. So this is like dream big and let's go there. But we're going to do a little time travel for this to happen. And we're going to go and observe yourself sometime in the future. And we recommend 2 to 20 years in that time range. What sounds good for you?
Oh, well, that one's a little bit harder, but I'll go with 20 just to play with that.
All right, here we go. We're going to set the Zoom time machine for 2045. And let's go ahead and climb into the Zoom time machine and take a few deep breaths as we go to our imagined future. Now, as we're on our way there, I want to just let you know, like when you get there, you're still going to be yourself from your 2025 self, but you're going to observe your 20-year older self. Okay. So everything that you're seeing or recording is observing what has happened that you want to happen. Does that make sense?
Yep, I think so.
All right. Well, we're pulling into the 2045 station and ding! These are the very high-tech sound effects, by the way.
I like it.
We're going to climb out of the Zoom time machine right now. And the first question that I have is just like, in 2045, where are we?
Well, there are so many variables in my life at the moment, so I'm going to have to take forward an interesting surprise to myself in 2045. Well, I in an ideal sense, I am somewhere near my daughter and able to at least get to her within a day. Let's just say that. Because when I left 2025, I was looking ahead towards retirement, and I was looking ahead towards, a future where I'm not really sure where exactly I would end up ultimately living. So I'm just going to say I am somewhere close to my daughter, enough within at least a day's trip. Probably still here in Michigan, and in that capacity. And I would imagine and also hope that I'm finding myself retired by that point as well.
Well, again, you're hoping and wishing a lot here, and this is your preferred future. So declare it, make it so.
Declare it. Here we go.
What are
Well,
you observing in 2045?
I am working in some capacity for the Civic Wellness Movement. I am continuing the work that I have been doing since the last 5 years or so. And I am active in expanding out that role, ideally in Michigan and throughout the Midwest. I am still running, hopefully, my Civic Corps organization, even from retirement, and just continue to be engaged in the intersections of where our democracy and the everyday lives of Americans intersect, and empowering people to be civic actors in their own lives. That's my hope.
Yeah, so you're kind of blending in a lot of professional accomplishments, which kind of leads into our next question. But I want to make sure to stay in touch with your personal here too, as we explore and observe your 20-year-older self.
Yeah.
And the next question here is, what will you be most proud of?
Oh, well, I'm sure my daughter. I'm sure my daughter. I mean, that and whatever she's going to do with her life and career. And I am sure that if I'm watching myself, watching her, it's with pride.
And if you are watching your 20-year-older self, and it sounds like you're still very much civically engaged, working in the civic wellness movement, you're very proud of your daughter. Like, walk me through a typical day. How do you spend your time?
Well, I like to be a night owl, but not too too late in the night. Let's put it to you that way, especially as I've gotten older. But I'm kind of hardwired. I'm a neurodiverse individual, so I get my ADHD zoomies in the evenings. So I'll be honoring that, knowing myself. And when I wake up, usually I like a slow wake up. Who doesn't, right? But if I'm retired, then I'm going to invest in that, and then start my morning with my partner, and whatever he's doing, having our coffee or tea or whatever, and usually starting the day slowly. And then at some point, of course, there's exercise, and hopefully there'll be a little doggy by my side. And, just sort of planning out the average day would look like, well, what do I want to accomplish today? What do I want to get? What do I want to give back to the world? But also, how do I want to nurture myself? How do I want to honor my own walk at that age, whatever, my physical, strengths and limitations might be. Hopefully I'll have a garage and won't be shoveling snow as much. We're gonna add that to the mix.
Well, and I just want to go back and say, this is your preferred future. So
yeah, well, then I'm having a
I
garage.
have a dog, I have a partner,
I have a dog,
I don't shovel snow.
There we go. We're gonna do all the I statements, absolutely. And I would like to I'm gonna be looking around, and keeping up with the fact that the United States Civic Wellness Movement, or health and civic wellness, however you want to call it, it was successful in the early 21st century in generating that which we hoped it would, which would be a stronger, more engaged citizenry. I'm looking around, and I am seeing states by state by state have improved the channels of democracy, so that those have been opened up. The political parties have backed off. They are no longer driving the fear-based narrative in this country. We have more political competition. Whether it's through ranked choice voting or other systems that people in their individual states decide that they want. We have greater civic engagement, greater community engagement, more of a local focus going on in this country.
So I want to pull you back into the question of, how do you spend your day?
Oh, June. This is how I spend my day, though. This is my honest answer. I think about this stuff all the time.
Right?
It's so, right? So yeah. So, I mean, after my cup of coffee, then I'm going to be probably doing some of the planning and emailing, and, those kinds of things that, will keep those wheels turning. And certainly, as much as I can stay active with students that are eager to learn the skill sets that we teach through what we do in Civic Corps, are still benefiting. I still have those kinds of relationships in my life.
Yeah.
Whether there's grandbabies in my life, of course, I'm hoping that is absolutely the case. So I'm going to say there are.
No pressure to your daughter.
No pressure to my daughter here. But yes, I have grandchildren, and I see them frequently, and all is good on the health front. And I'm a simple person. So for me, what my ideal day is a lot of contentment and a lot of just being able to move through my day with fluidity, ease, and grace.
Well, and you're blending into the next question. So let me just ask it and then let you continue, because the next one is, how will you feel most of the time?
I hope that way, basically content, as I envision what this world looks like. I certainly will enjoy my friends. I'm enjoying my friends. I'm enjoying my family, and just being able to give back to the world. It's kind of funny when I think about this, because on the podcast that I probably am still doing too. I'm gonna add that in there. I'm still doing
right. You're
our
still
America's
podcasting,
Caravan.
okay?
Yeah, Back to America's Caravan is one of the best known podcasts in the country, along with Terrified Nation, and we visit each other all the time. Hopefully, not so terrified by then, though, right?
I know, right? Like maybe we can turn it into, Lovely Nation.
There you go, or extra hopeful, accomplished nation.
Yes.
So for me, those questions are a little more challenging. We actually did the similar kind of interview just recently, and it was of each other. My co-host and I. So in the future, I'm looking to see that as a success.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and again, as you're observing your 20-year older self in 2045, what can you identify as your 3 to 5? It's an arbitrary number, but priority values or qualities might be a better word.
Qualities of self, you mean?
Of life, yes. For how you live your life. What are your values?
Simplicity, generosity, and presentness.
Okay.
Just being present to the now, observing, being present, being as generous as I can with the resources that I have, as well as, so.
And simplicity was the first
simplicity.
one.
Simplicity, which probably means I'm not on computers as much as I actually indicate. Because they're never helpful.
I do have to confess, I just took 2 days where I minimized my computer time, and I feel so much better.
Nice. Yes. I think for Gen X, we are, and we will definitely be very burnt out, I'm sure, in the next 20, 30 years on tech.
Got a lot to do. So we're coming into the home stretch, and I really want to expand out a little bit from your personal life here to look at the community that supports your future, and what does your community that in which you're living need to include or provide so that this preferred future is possible.
Oh, I love this. One in which that when I step out of my front door, within a few blocks I can walk to public transport and take public transport to wherever I need to go that day, more or less. One in which we have a thriving volunteer community, and I have to say, where I'm currently at, very much that is the case, but as in many cases, people are losing that, and we want to revitalize that. So it's a community that found itself in the early 21st century reconnecting, and by 2045 it has reconnected more, and a lot more youth engagement. Would love to see more business tech industries coming in to bring families, revitalization of our tax base in our schools, where you have those opportunities to engage with the community and walk down to your coffee shops, and that help serve a rich and diverse population that has just grown. And I'm sure we'll still be a reasonably rural population where I'm most likely to live, I would imagine, in 20 years. But to look out and see just that continued and expanded engagement has occurred over 20 years, and can just enjoy being part of it.
Yeah. So I'm here. I quote this one of my interviews in season 2. Um, I'm not pulling the name off, but I'll put it. I can. Anyway, the thing that she said her community needed to do, she
Yeah.
said the community has to want to community.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
that
exactly
has
right.
just stuck with me because it's like so true. How many of us, pull into our garage when we get home and close the door, and then we just like it's our retreat from the world instead of the place where we actually source our connections.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really potent. I certainly enjoy the idea of hosting, people in my home and for meetings and group things like that. But there's one other little piece that I kind of forgot to mention in what else June either will be doing or has done within those 20 years.
Okay.
A little bit of well, I am on a path towards humorism, and I'm interested in seeing. I've done a little stand-up comedy by this point, so we're gonna add that to the
So maybe
mix.
you have like you're not only walking down to public transportation, but maybe you're walking to the comedy
I'm
club where your
walking to
set
comedy.
is due because
That's
you're doing
right.
your evening zoomies.
There you go.
Right?
That's exactly right. At 9 o'clock, I'm on, man.
Exactly. Yes, I got it. I got it. And everybody's laughing hilariously at your jokes of how did we get here?
I love it. That's a story I could tell, I think.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to come back to 2025. And June, I really want you to think about what are you doing today that or in the near future that's going to influence or co-create that community that you want to live in 2045.
Well, I hope that the seeds that I'm planting with my students will be a pay forward, right? I teach a very civics oriented mindset about personal empowerment and engagement in the world around you, being a consumer of information, a discerner, and also somebody that puts themselves out there for the community. And so hopefully that'll pay forward in of its own right, which every educator, I think that's probably obvious, and we all hope for that. The Civic Corps program that I run with the students, is about a lot of work of honoring and honoring veterans, as well as learning civic diplomacy skills, things like that. So I hope that organization is going to continue into the future. And I wouldn't mind having some of my students maybe, say, hey, we want to come back and open branches or whatever they want to do, so that I could kind of sit back and be the old lady that sort of, thumbs up, thumbs up, everybody. But then also I work with an organization called Delta Chats as well, which is hosted by the college I work at. And what that purpose of that organization is to bring in people who are leaders within the community already to help them connect to state, national, regional resources on bridging differences, having healthy dialogues, having healthy conversations, and just connecting people to this larger phenomenon that's happening in the early 21st century all across this country, which is really so much hope lives in this civic wellness and health movement. And just getting more people who in the now will feel, as you were saying, taking those risks and being willing to be brave and take society and our civic
Yeah.
engagement to that next level.
So I'm going to pull on a couple threads here. One of the things that I hear you doing is you're weaving in like these local connections to state and federal resources for providing the how people can engage with each other respectfully across differences. And one of the things that's missing is the why. We have gotten as a nation, this is just me espousing an opinion here for a second, but we have become so conflict avoidant
Mm.
and fearful of each other that we forget that we can learn skills to disagree in a way and still love each other, right? Love our neighbors and love our family members who think differently than us. And so I hear you doing this weaving across like local resource groups or local civic groups with state and national resources to help us find that courage to reach out to people different from ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, and also too, and I say this when I, sometimes when I've done some television work in the area promoting what's going on too, as I said, look, we do this in so many areas of our lives already. What it is that because politics has that pallor about it, that edge about it, we tend to forget. It's like we have sort of amnesia. We go and we interact in our day-to-day lives in so many ways, so many different venues, and we don't even think twice about politics. We overcome difference. We deal with adversity. We deal with these things. We're doing it. We're able to do this. We just have to to take that skill and make it a transferable skill to the area of politics and political culture. And really, I think what people first are going to need to do to see that future in 2045 is get comfortable with the inward journey of self. And what does that mean in terms of how do I see myself contributing to our political culture in whatever manner that is? And we have to shed the idea that political culture is about going off and running for office, or, all, you know what I'm saying? That's one of the misnomers, because we don't teach civics the way we used to. We might still teach government, but we don't teach civics. That engagement piece of self is what we used to teach more in courses tied to civics, that allowed younger people to start to form a civic identity. And in forming that civic identity, they know whether or not, well, running for office isn't for me, but I can be civically engaged in these other ways. And that process of self-discovery, I would love to see something else has changed by 2024, or I keep getting the year wrong, but 45, is that schools all across this country are reinvigorated with civics back in the curriculum. Civics, geography, and geology, I believe, are incredibly important to reinstitute into our educational system in a big way. But yeah, well, that's another issue.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I just want to land one more thing here with you before we close out. And that is that, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, I came up with this idea that I call a civic life plan. Because we plan our retirement, we plan our careers, we plan our education, we plan our families, but we don't plan our civic life throughout our stages of development. So, when we're young adults, it might be appropriate to have a volunteer civic plan. And when we're young parents, it might be appropriate to have a school involvement as part of our civic life plan. It's, so as we grow, things that where we bump up against other people, that becomes our civic engagement, and thinking about it as a civic life plan, I think, would be really helpful.
I absolutely love that, because as an individual who was trained to teach civics as well as imparts that kind of knowledge, that's essentially the kinds of stuff that I know in casual conversation, nothing as formal as a plan, but I love that idea of a plan. We try and get people thinking about, when you have kids, you're not going to engage the same way as before you had kids. And you're not going to engage the same way when you were a working person as you will, in your retirement years. So think through those things. I love that, Debilyn. Wonderful.
Yeah. It's all about my imagination of the future.
Yep. And that's what we have to do. We have to keep imagining the future, because and I hope that in 2045, that people are continuing to imagine that future, even if we have managed to overcome the challenges and problems of the now. Because if we don't keep imagining, then in future generations, we'll lose the benefits of that which we have imagined into, from the now.
And so you're just giving me a perfect setup for ending the interview, which is this invitation. And the invitation, based in neuroscience, is to think about this preferred future that you've identified today, or evolve it to whatever it will become, and spend 5 minutes every day feeling it, envisioning it, believing it, being grateful that it's there, having some awe and wonder that we've created this wonderful future for ourselves. And that 5 minutes a day is enough to help your subconscious begin making choices towards it.
That's right.
And so, and this, of course, is an invitation to everyone out there in the Terrified Nation listening audience, because that's what American Future, what this interview is about, is the National Research Project to imagine the future we want together. And if you'd like to participate, please go to americanfuture.us, click on the Share Your Future Story, and that button will give you all the questions that you can answer for yourself. So, June, thank you for sharing your preferred future with Terrified Nation, and for just being such an awesome teacher in Michigan and holding this idea of civic well-being for all of us, because you're impacting the future for all of us. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for doing this podcast. This is awesome.
So, in closing today's show, I really want to thank you also, the listeners of Terrified Nation, for giving a damn. We may be a terrified nation today, but we can do better. We can save the USA. Join me next time.
So that's it for today's episode of Terrified Nation. Head on over to iTunes or wherever you listen to subscribe to the show. You can get advance notice on new episodes and bonus content by signing up. Head over to terrifiednation.com and join us on the next episode.